He had worked 12 months without missing a single deadline, stayed late while other employees went home, and quietly carried responsibilities most people never noticed. But when the company finally announced bonuses, the single father thought his sacrifice would finally be recognized. Instead, his CEO looked him directly in the eyes and said, "You don't deserve a bonus." The room went silent. His daughter was waiting for him downstairs, expecting him to come home with good news. He swallowed his disappointment, thanked his boss, and walked toward the elevator. But before those elevator doors could close, a voice behind him changed his life forever. Before we begin, if you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's life, please subscribe to The Kindness Effect, hit the like button, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's begin. Daniel Carter was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, in a small apartment outside Chicago. Life wasn't easy, but Daniel rarely complained. Every morning, he packed Emma's lunch, helped her with her homework, and then drove her to school before heading to work at a large technology company called Horizon Systems. Daniel worked as a project coordinator. His job wasn't glamorous, but he was good at it. He solved problems, helped coworkers, stayed late when deadlines were tight, and never took credit for work that belonged to someone else. His daughter was his reason for everything. One Friday afternoon, Daniel received an email from his boss asking him to attend a company meeting. He immediately wondered if something was wrong. When he entered the conference room, several senior employees were already there. At the front of the room stood Victoria Reynolds, Horizon Systems CEO. Victoria was known for being brilliant, demanding, and extremely difficult to impress. She looked at Daniel and said, "You've been here for 3 years, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "You worked on the Anderson project?" "Yes." "The project that saved this company nearly $2 million? Daniel nodded. "My team did." Victoria leaned back in her chair. "And you expect a bonus?" Daniel was surprised by the question. "I was hoping I had earned one." Victoria gave a cold smile. "You don't deserve a bonus." The words hit him harder than he expected. Daniel looked down at his hands. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted to explain the nights he had stayed until midnight, the weekends he had spent fixing problems, and the mornings he had arrived exhausted after taking care of his daughter. But instead, he simply said, "I understand." Victoria continued, "People like you should be grateful just to have a job." Daniel slowly stood. He nodded politely. "Thank you for your time." Then he walked out. In the hallway, Daniel stopped for a moment and took a deep breath. His eyes became wet, but he refused to cry. His daughter was waiting downstairs. He had promised her they would celebrate that evening if he received his bonus. Now he had nothing. As Daniel approached the elevator, he heard someone call his name. "Daniel!" He turned around. Standing behind him was Michael Grant, the CEO of Horizon's biggest rival, Sterling Innovations. Michael had been visiting the company that afternoon for a business meeting. Daniel had seen him before but had never spoken to him. Michael walked toward him. "I heard what happened." Daniel forced a small smile. "It's okay." "No," Michael said. "It isn't." Daniel looked confused. Michael continued, "I've been watching the work your team has been doing for the past year. You were the person who solved the Anderson crisis when everyone else was ready to give up." Daniel shook his head. "I was just doing my job." "That," Michael replied, "is exactly why I want you working for me." Daniel stared at him. Michael handed him a business card. "I'll give you a better salary, a signing bonus, and a position where your ideas will actually matter." Daniel looked at the card but didn't answer immediately. Then he asked, "Why would you do that for me?" Michael smiled. "Because someone once gave me a chance when I didn't have anything to offer them. I never forgot it." Daniel looked toward the elevator. "I need to think about it." "Take tonight," Michael said. "But don't let someone else's lack of appreciation convince you that you have no value." Daniel thanked him and left. That evening, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with Emma. She noticed immediately that something was wrong. "Daddy, did you get your bonus?" Daniel looked at his daughter. "No, sweetheart." Emma's face fell. "But you worked so hard." Daniel smiled. "Sometimes hard work doesn't get rewarded right away." Emma reached across the table and held his hand. "I think you're the best daddy anyway." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. That simple sentence meant more to him than any bonus ever could. The next morning, Daniel called Michael. "I accept." 3 months later, Daniel started his new job at Sterling Innovations. He wasn't just given a better salary. He was given something even more valuable: respect. Michael introduced him to the team personally and told everyone, "Daniel is here because he earned his place." Daniel worked hard, but he also remembered how it felt to be ignored. So when a young employee made a mistake, Daniel didn't embarrass him. When a struggling coworker needed help, Daniel stayed late. And when an intern quietly suggested an idea that could improve a major project, Daniel made sure management heard it. One day, Michael asked Daniel why he always went out of his way to help others. Daniel smiled. "Because I know what it feels like when nobody does." Years later, Daniel became one of Sterling Innovation's most respected leaders. And one afternoon, he received an unexpected email. It was from Victoria Reynolds. She wanted to meet. Daniel agreed. When they sat across from each other, Victoria looked different. She seemed tired. "I heard you became vice president," she said. Daniel nodded. Victoria looked down. "I made a mistake with you." Daniel could have reminded her of the bonus. He could have told her how humiliated he felt. Instead, he simply said, "We all make mistakes." Victoria looked surprised. "Aren't you angry?" Daniel shook his head. "I was. But holding on to anger wouldn't help me become the man my daughter deserves." Victoria was silent. Daniel stood and offered his hand. "Thank you for giving me a reason to find something better." Sometimes, the person who rejects you may unknowingly push you toward the opportunity you were meant to find. And sometimes, the greatest kindness isn't giving someone money. It's seeing their value when they have forgotten it themselves. Daniel never forgot the day he was told he didn't deserve a bonus. But he also never forgot the person who stopped him before the elevator doors closed. One man made him feel worthless. Another reminded him of his worth. So remember this: you never know what someone is carrying behind a quiet smile. A coworker may be struggling. A stranger may be fighting a battle you cannot see. A parent may be working 2 jobs just to keep their child smiling. Be the person who makes life a little lighter. Because kindness costs very little, but to someone who desperately needs it, it can mean everything. And sometimes, one kind moment can change a life forever.